I want to make stuff. I want to make stuff that can work with other stuff to make bigger stuff. Stuff that can transform into new stuff with the assistance of other stuff. There's a saying that goes something like, the whole stuff is greater than the sum of the stuffs. That's kind of everything though. Everyone has made stuff and everyone wants to continue making stuff. Duh. But what specifically do I want to make? Well, I like to draw, I like learning computer software and messing with code, and I happen to really like games. Oh, I know. I want to make video games. We currently live in a time where video games are as accessible as ever. Millions of hours of work put in by hundreds of thousands of people over the course of nearly 60 years has led us to a point in gaming history where there's hundreds of thousands of different games all on a platter of different platforms with their own dedicated fan spaces and accessibility features. I mean, there's entire conventions and meetups around the most titanic video games of every year, as well as announcing games that are about to be released in the future. Gaming has turned into the largest industry in entertainment for how interactive and diverse it is. It's had a lasting effect on my interests and is actually how I found quite a few of my friends. So for me, personally speaking, I've decided to try finding a space in the art of making video games. Sharing video games and what they can be sounds like a really fun experience. I don't remember exactly what the first video game I ever played was. It's between Sonic Adventure 1 on the Dreamcast, Sonic Unleashed on the PS2, or SpongeBob. I only really vividly remember playing Sonic Unleashed though, so I'm just gonna say my dark gamer backstory started in the ice caps of Alaska. After playing a bunch of other kid games, I'd venture forth and graduate into more adult video games like Black Ops 1 Zombies or Gears of War. Also, just kind of as a random aside, I've actually never played Gears of War 2. I played 1 and 3, but I don't know why I skipped 2. Eventually though, I just wanted to move on from being your average gamer. I wanted to use this new ability to observe what a video game is made out of to make my own. I had no idea what it took to make a video game though, so around the end of elementary school, my squeaker brain tried to open up a project file in Roblox Studio, and then promptly did absolutely nothing but idiotically slam models together. What? Eventually, I would finally think to myself, well, I've messed with Studio for so long, why not finally learn the nitty-gritty? So I decided to take a programming class in high school where you first learn how to program this dumb little turtle in Python. And as a result, I managed to understand the basic concept of programming. Then the second economic crisis in my lifetime hit, and the opportunity to program a drone at school was unfairly and unjustly ripped from my fingertips. I had to keep going though, and decided to continue my mission of learning how to program. I jumped back into Roblox Studio to finally learn Lua. Countless hours were spent either in my bedroom or in the library's computer lab trying to understand how to code stuff in this Lego block game engine. I came up with stuff as I went, and eventually I got a clear vision of exactly what I was going to do. Forgotten Road. It took me about a year before I finished this thing. This experience came a little late though. You see, this game is a role-playing game. The role-playing games I was familiar with were games like Dark & Dawn, EMS, Warrior Cats, or Dragon Ball role-playing game number 462. All these games are basically just glorified character creators where the built-in Roblox chat functionality would carry any event that you or your friends would want to write out. There wasn't any dice rolling like D&D or anything. It was just everybody constantly vibe-checking each other. Not too dissimilar from Gmod or GTA role-playing games. I don't really know what happened to these kinds of games, but I'm just gonna call this era the based roleplay era. During this era, I wanted to make my own roleplay, so I kinda just modified scripts someone else made until a barely functioning game worked and people could play it. It got a little traction, but only because the people who used to play my older rendition of this game would come in to see what I did. So, I mean, at least I learned something. Studio was a good stepping stone to learn the basics of game development and coding logic, which, for me, is the hardest but most rewarding aspect of making a game. It was a chilly last night of October, and having been doom-scrolling through Twitter, I happened to notice that a certain annoying dog uploaded a real sus-looking file. Now, Undertale was and still is one of my favorite games of all time, so naturally, I immediately decided to download what could have been some crypto miner, but fortunately for me and everyone else who downloaded it, I was blasted with an incredible first chapter of a game yet to come out. About 3.5 years later, I had begun wrapping up the development of Forgotten Road and decided to finally plan my move onto new pastures. This roleplay game certainly wasn't going to get me very far, so naturally I would look elsewhere for inspiration. And what do you know? The second chapter of Deltarune has been out for a few months now. I downloaded the GameMaker 2 engine since that's what these games were made on and just started messing around with it. To start off learning stuff, I decided to subscribe to this YouTuber and follow their Zelda-like RPG tutorial. Yeah, I didn't really learn shit. I mean, I learned the layout of the engine, but just following Sean beat for beat really didn't help me learn how the engine actually worked. And at this point, I was still in a weird phase where I didn't really know how to learn these things properly yet. Plus, I looked at it through the lens of Studio, which doesn't utilize stuff like Ready or Step outright in scripts. Anyways, I decided to scour the internet once more to try and find a way to make a movement system. And again, I want to emphasize that I basically just decided to copy the code from the RPG tutorial up until a very specific point. At this point, I just added a little bit of touch to fix diagonal movement and added a run button, like Undertale. Wow. I did the exact same tutorial thing with the dialogue system because I just didn't really know where to even start, and then after finishing the system, adding some touches to it that the tutorial didn't add, I got stuck. How did I get stuck? Well, I had no idea how to make the dialogue stop the game. Like, if I tried to make a little cutscene where a character maybe falls on their butt or picks up something while speaking, I couldn't do it. I got stuck. I didn't know how to make this not happen because I followed a tutorial on the thing I knew nothing about. I just wanted to make cool cutscenes. Anyways, I stopped there. I just got really demotivated and stepped away, but I plan on moving back to it sometime in the future with a particularly promising looking engine. After a few semesters of college passed, I got my motivation back and decided to jump back into learning engines. So that's what leads me to where I was a couple months ago, learning Unity, the ultimate game engine. So many games are made on this engine. Subnautica, Cult of the Lamb, Cuphead, Night in the Woods, Hollow Knight, Genshin Impact, which I didn't even know, Rust, Ori, Fishman's Last Stand. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if like God of War was made on Unity at this point. It's a little weird that they decided to merge with the notorious malware developer though. Probably doesn't matter. So I loaded up Unity Hub, downloaded Unity 2022, and came into it with two simple goals in mind. 1, use absolutely no in-depth tutorials, and 2, make Flappy Bird from scratch. The beginning of the development of this little project wasn't recorded because I actually started it and then promptly left it over summer break. Eventually, I decided to jump back into it when I actually had a reason to do it. Before this point, I had absolutely no idea how to use C#, so the beginning of this is just me figuring out the language barrier and how it interacts with the Unity editor. Turns out it's kind of particular, and Unity uses the editor to attach components, which is what attaches scripts to objects, and you can kind of just have a bunch of scripts interact with each other, but you have to use the editor to do that. Also, there's prefabs, you can say changes to them. So I first made the bird jump with the new input system Unity made. Then I made a pipe spawner object that takes a prefab of 2 pipes. Then I added a little score hitbox in the prefab when the bird hits it, and it makes the score, which is another object up here, go up. Then I added some objects in the background that also spawn things kind of like the pipe spawner, except they're different because they're not supposed to interact with the bird. And wait, what? Wait, what is that? Wait, what is that over there? Wait. No! So, about 3 weeks into making this, the Unity company decides to just make this weird change to their payment structure. A structure that charges you for someone else downloading your game. They went through the whole PR thing where they would just say, oh yeah, no, this is how it works, guys, and just kind of acted like everyone was confused. They also got rid of their old GitHub repo, but then a couple days or so later, after realizing this image exists, they slowly started to roll back some of their dumbassery, and eventually they would cave, and finally just decided to go, well, you guys don't have to do it, but you can if you want. I guess it was a good time to learn Unity in the grand scheme of things. At first I was like totally distraught because like why the hell did I just learn about how all this works? But then I thought to myself, well, I'm sure I learned something. I wonder how Unreal works. Wait a minute, there's an open source game engine? So anyways, after that whole Twitter debacle went down, I continued working on the game. I finished the menu, the background, and even gave the end a fun little animation for reaching 100 pipes. I made a Flappy Bird with some extra steps. That's what happened. It took me, wow, it took me over 34 hours to make. The guy who made the original Flappy Bird did it in 2 days. What? Do I just suck? What? Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that my bud Ben made the music. He's pretty cool. Thanks, Ben. I'm gonna continue learning how to make games, but it's unfortunately going to take me forever. I wish I could just grab onto things and just suck up the knowledge into my brain, but apparently that's not possible, and if it was, it'd probably be illegal. Just to give you an idea of how much stuff I'd like to learn in order to understand how a half-decent game is made, here's a bucket list of things I'll probably figure out how to do in due time. Blender, 3D models, 3D animation, textures, node work, UV wrapping, weight painting, FL Studio, making music, making good sounding music, Godot and GDScript, scalable code, Unreal Engine, blueprints, and C++. SFX work, good UI, voice acting, probably, and 2D animation. That's all assuming I just do everything myself though, which... Making big-ass games is effectively impossible to do by yourself. It's not like impossible, it's just totally improbable, and you're probably gonna spend like your entire life working on it if you just do everything by yourself. Especially when you're starting out, which is why I'm taking it a step at a time with Epic Bird Game. It's just Flappy Bird. I couldn't even get the proper controller support working because I didn't entirely understand how the new input system worked. Games like Undertale and Deltarune Chapter 1 are relatively simple games made mostly by one person. Undertale is long, but it doesn't have an insane amount of systems in place. It has movement, health, NPCs, dialogue, inventory, shops, and of course, the super cool battle system. Compared to some games, that really isn't a lot. Apparently it's coded like shit too. Like a Switch case that has 5,000 lines of code for a dialogue system shit. Honestly, it's kind of inspiring. BattleBit Remastered was a game made by 3 dudes who used to make Unturned mods, and all that game is just a giant objective-based sandbox with guns and cars. Minecraft started out by one guy making a small Java game where you could place and get rid of blocks, and Well, I don't really need to tell you where that went. A problem that I had when starting out is that I took too much stock in trying to replicate what other indie games have done without even knowing the process that went behind it. I was too busy comparing the end product of their games to the beginning of how I was even supposed to learn how to navigate an engine. Since then, I've learned to take inspirations from bits and pieces of their games and respect the path that they took to get there, but know that ultimately, I'm gonna have to find my own path. And something that's also taken me a while to understand is that something like game development doesn't have a linear path. It's not like you can just go to college, get a degree, find a company or institution that'll just give you a job and work from there. It's much more comparable to an art. Something that's more portfolio based. You have to pick where you want to start from and build from there, like a really sprawled out tree. It may depend on what you want to specialize in too. For me, I want to be able to do all of those things mentioned earlier, and to do so, my best bet would be to just continue learning this stuff as I go. I may have started learning development a few years ago, but I'm just now starting my own little indie adventure. There's a lot of great things that started small and continue to grow, and right now I'm in that really small phase. The main purpose of this video is to give myself a waystone. I'd like to start using this channel as a journal of sorts to record my progress and help drive myself to work even more. I'm currently working on a prototype of a roguelike game in Godot, which, by the way, is an awesome engine. I did not talk about it, but it's great. I'm gonna start streaming as well. I'll either be drawing, making, or playing video games. If you'd like to be a part of that journey, stick around. Thanks for watching, and I'll keep you posted.